Hello and welcome to In Parliament. I'm Geraldine Tan. Several issues were raised today, from healthcare and housing to discarded used ballot boxes and the relocation of Paya Lebar Air Base. But the highlight of today's session was members giving former Minister Mentor Kuan Yew a standing ovation on his 90th birthday. Leader of the House and Defence Minister Ng Hen delivered a special address to congratulate Mr. Lee on the occasion. Dr. Ng noted that Mr. Lee has been a member of Singapore's legislature for 58 years since 1955, when he was elected into the first Legislative Assembly of Singapore. He said what Mr. Lee has accomplished for Singapore over a lifetime of service and struggle is astonishing and without peer. On behalf of all members, Dr. Ng expressed Singaporeans' profound admiration and gratitude on Mr. Lee's birthday. He said Mr. Lee, through his singular mission and dedication, steered the country into independence and laid the very foundations that transformed it into a modern and thriving metropolis.
In lifting an entire nation and improving countless lives of Singaporeans of several generations, Mr. Kuan Yew has left a lasting legacy to all of us and achieved greatness. Madam Speaker and members of this House are delighted and honoured to be able to share this special occasion on his 90th birthday with Mr. Lee in this House, and he has made special efforts to be in this House, and I think against doctor's advice. All MPs wish him happiness and continued good health. Happy birthday.
The Singapore Armed Forces is establishing a state-of-the-art multi-layered island air defence system to provide a comprehensive shield protecting Singapore against airborne threats. It will acquire new hardware, the ASTOR-30 surface-to-air missile system, which is many times more potent than the current ground-based air defence system. The Air Force will also upgrade its F-16 fighter jets to modernise the electronic systems and extend equipment lifespan. Defence Minister Dr. Ng Hen said earlier that plans to relocate Paya Lebar Airport to Changi will not come at the compromise of security. The relocation will take place after existing air bases at Changi East and Tengah have been expanded to accommodate relocated assets and facilities. Dr. Ng said the relocation will be costly but will generate billions of dollars in returns to Singaporeans.
Superior air defence and strike capabilities have been built up through prudent and steady investments of resources and land allocation for our defence needs. And over the years, we have acquired, adapted and developed advanced technologies and state-of-the-art platforms to provide more accurate and timely early warning and situational awareness of potential threats. We will continue to invest in these capabilities.
I'd like to ask the Minister if there's a potential in the future for all our airbase facilities to be consolidated in one possible location, and what are the factors that might actually contribute to us consolidating it in that way?
It is not our intent to squeeze our defence assets to the most efficient, because there's an issue of ability of operational needs, and this configuration with an expanded Changi Air Base and an expanded Tengah Air Base fulfills those needs, and we think that going forward for a very long time, already the relocation of Paya Lebar Air Base is a long-term initiative. We've given it a timeline, perhaps around 2030, but this will serve us for the longer term, and there are no plans and no studies to even further consolidate.
Minister for Social and Family Development Chan Chun Sing said the discovery of empty ballot boxes after the elections does not mean there was a lapse in the election process, nor any offence under the law. He said the empty boxes clearly suggest an oversight by those responsible for clearing them. Last month, used ballot boxes were found in a school in Bishan, Toa Payoh, which had served as a counting centre for the 2011 presidential election. Mr. Chan said police had since found several more disused ballot boxes in 5 other schools. They were supposed to have been collected by the Election Department's contractor for general disposal. Responding to a question from alternate GRC MP Pritam Singh, Mr. Chan said that after polling closes, ballot papers are transferred from ballot boxes into a different set of boxes. And from that point on, the empty boxes become discarded boxes.
Let me first clarify the difference between controlled items and non-controlled items. In this particular case, the empty disused boxes are non-controlled items. For the elections department, the priority is to ensure that all controlled items, for example, ballot papers, are properly accounted for. And this we have done so over the course of the election.
Mr. Chan added that the Elections Department is looking into a tighter disposal process for non-controlled items to prevent such incidents in future. On healthcare matters, Minister Gan Kim Yong said family members of Community Health Assist Scheme cardholders who are 40 years and below will automatically be included into the scheme from 1st January next year. They will receive their cards from 26 December onwards. Mr. Gan said younger households who only meet the revised criteria now can already start to apply for the scheme. Each household will only need to submit one application form.
We will also work with grassroots organizations to reach out to needy households in the community to help them apply for the scheme.
If a child's eligible household suffers a drop in the household income within a 2-year validity period, say from 1,005 to 900 per capita household monthly income, either because loss of employment or due to changes in their employment, would the minister consider upgrading the child subsidy level from orange to blue?
The answer is yes. Please apply, and we will take a review on a case-by-case basis. The idea is that this card eventually aims to help the low income and the middle income, and if you need help, we will try our best to help you.
On details and costs of the Universal Healthcare Insurance Scheme MediShield Life, Mr. Gan said they will be shared during the public consultation exercise to be conducted later this year. It will include the likely impact on payouts from MediShield Life. Mr. Gan said the scheme is expected to be rolled out in 2015.
So there are several aspects to be dealt with in the public consultation, and we will produce a consultation paper shortly before the consultation exercise starts to outline what are the key things that we are consulting the public about.
While I support the increased coverage, my concern is that these higher premiums will be a financial burden on some members, especially the elderly and the low income. So my questions are, is the government planning to subsidize MediShield Life premiums as part of its overall plan to increase the healthcare budget?
We have already made a commitment that we will make sure that the lower income, as well as the older Singaporeans who may not have sufficient savings, will be looked after. We'll make sure that the premiums with government subsidies will be affordable for them.
The HDB considers divorcees who have not taken a first housing subsidy on their matrimonial home as first-time applicants. This point was clarified by Minister of State Dr. Maliki Osman in Parliament today. He added that as long as the individual is a first-timer at the point of divorce, it makes him or her eligible to apply for the new 2-room built-to-order for single flats, if they also meet other criteria like age and income ceiling. Dr. Maliki was also asked whether the debarment period for divorcees interested in rental housing could be lowered.
We are more sympathetic obviously to divorcees who do have custody of children, and when they form a family nucleus, they are bound by the 30-month debarment, but we have seen cases that require some further assistance, and we're prepared to look at that. If they do not have custody of children, then we treat them as singles, and we hope that they can also try to look for housing options on their own. If they're above 35, then they can always apply for the rental flat under joint single scheme.
There are currently 48,200 households living in HDB rental flats. Dr. Maliki said the average length of stay for these households is 11 years. And in the last 2 years, 630 rental tenants progressed to own a home. He said currently there are 1,900 registered applicants waiting to be allocated a rental flat.
In view of the high demand, I do see that some blocks are still having a lot of empty units of rental flats. So how can the Ministry expeditiously allocate these flats out? The member mentioned we see empty flats available, but it doesn't mean that they are not being allocated. It is being allocated. Sometimes flats are affected by EIP or ethnic quotas, but we try to allocate to the eligible or those families who are on the queue as soon as we can. We have actually reduced the waiting time in the queue from 21 months right now to an average of 7.5 months for them to be allocated those rental flats.
On a question about the HDB's ethnic integration policy, Dr. Maliki said it's still needed to ensure a good mix of residents of different races in different neighbourhoods. The policy was implemented in 1989 to prevent the formation of ethnic enclaves and promote racial harmony in HDB estates. Dr. Maliki said EIP limits are consistently applied across all neighbourhoods. Currently, only 11% of HDB neighbourhoods are affected by the limits, where at least one ethnic group has reached its quota.
I've had instances of residents coming to me saying that they are unable to sell their flats, which have been on the market for, I think, in one case, at least 8 months, because they have not received offers from persons of the relevant race. In cases like that, where they can demonstrate that they do not receive offers, will HDB exercise some flexibility?
Our observation is that for those cases affected by EIP, oftentimes it really depends on the practical nature of which they are asking, the prices they're asking for. A majority of flats that are affected by EIP have been able to be sold by sellers on or even above valuation. There are also flats that are not affected by the EIP that were sold below valuation. So I think the EIP alone is not one of the key factors in whether the person or the seller is able to sell the flat. We recognize that some face more challenges than others, but by and large, our data shows that it is not impossible for them to be able to find their buyers of the ethnic group that's necessary.
Senior Minister of State for Education INDRANEE RAJAH says preschool operators can take reference from the fees set by the Education Ministry's pilot kindergartens. But that's not the key purpose of these pilot kindergartens, which have kept monthly fees affordable at $150. Ms. INDRANEE said teaching and learning materials developed by the pilot kindergartens will be shared with the rest of the preschool sector. She said operators already have to justify any fee increases for their preschools.
We recognise parents' concerns about preschool fees. One of the key priorities of the Early Childhood Development Agency, or ECDA, is to keep early childhood programs affordable, especially for low and middle-income families. Apart from providing subsidies to parents, ECDA will continue to support voluntary welfare organisations and anchor operators to provide quality preschool services at an affordable fee in the heartlands. ECDA will expand the anchor operator scheme to more operators so that more children and parents may benefit.
Ms. INDRANEE also said private tuition is not necessary in Singapore's education system. She added tuition can be counterproductive for students who are doing reasonably well in school, creating unnecessary stress. For those who need additional support, she said there are comprehensive levelling up programs. Teachers can also provide remedial lessons. Separately, Ms. INDRANEE said the tuition industry has not made a significant impact on teacher attrition, with the resignation rate remaining at around 3% annually.
There are quite a number of star tutors or good tutors in the tuition industry who actually are ex-employees of Ministry of Education. So I wonder if MOE could perhaps get together a task force or work team to take a serious look at this phenomena and to advise what's the real status quo, and also to advise if there's a package of solutions that could, that's if needed, that could be implemented to address this phenomena.
Every parent wants their child to have the best possible shot, and for many of them, for whatever reason, some of them believe that having tuition will give their children that additional edge, which we do not think is necessarily the case. So the key to that really is in the parents' mindset and belief, and we hope that the message will get out to parents not to pile on unnecessary tuition into their students.
Since the government increased funding to voluntary welfare organisations by $10 million last year, more than 85% of funded VWOs have raised salaries of their professionals by a median of 8%. Minister Chan Chun Sing said his ministry will review funding norms for VWOs periodically and make adjustments to keep pace with salary benchmarks. He also clarified that besides social workers, the professionals include therapists, counsellors and early childhood teachers. The ministry will also continue to work with employers on the professional development of social service workers.
I hope that beyond making it more attractive for our citizens to work in this sector, if need to, we should allow the FSCs, the VWOs to also look at alternative sources outside of Singapore.
It's not so easy to recruit a person from overseas to work in the social service sector, in our own domestic social service sector, because culturally there are differences. Language-wise, there are also differences. Even for to recruit youngsters to work in the social service sector, sometimes our youngsters also do not have the necessary dialect skills to communicate with our elders. So these are some of the challenges. So while we have a broad-based approach towards expanding the pipeline to recruit more people into the sector, what we also need are also niche capabilities.
Second Home Affairs Minister S. Iswaran says Singapore is open to working with non-governmental organisations to fight human trafficking. He was responding to a question from Holland-Bukit Timah MP Christopher de Souza, who had asked for more government cooperation with impartial NGOs to reach out to vulnerable women and children.
To be easier for them, especially if they're trafficked or in vulnerable positions, to speak with a disarming NGO rather than a government officer who perhaps wants to interview rather than just receives sharing from these vulnerable people.
There are 4 prongs in the way we are dealing with this issue: prevention of the crime, prosecution of the offenders, protection of the victims, and partnerships with other countries, embassies, and NGOs in the private sector. The member's suggestion on cooperation with NGOs is therefore welcome. We are open to the idea. We work closely with the Ministry of Social and Family Development, and I think depending on the nature of the proposal and the ideas that are put on the table, I think we can take that discussion forward.
Given the transnational nature of human trafficking, Mr. Iswaran said the Home Affairs Ministry is also studying the merits and possibilities of an act against organised crime that can be exercised outside Singapore. Leader of the House, Dr. Ng Eng Hen, said a more open process to select nominated members of Parliament or NMPs could deter good applicants from coming forward. He said an open process would cause considerable discomfort to potential candidates, especially those who are not appointed. And not many would want to subject themselves to such public scrutiny. Dr. Ng was responding to NMP Eugene Tan, who asked if those seeking appointment as NMPs could be made public before or after the appointment process.
If someone is prepared to serve, I think there shouldn't be a concern about whether he or she will or will not get appointed. Essentially, my concern is whether we can add transparency into the process.
The member says that those who want to put themselves up for public service shouldn't feel embarrassed or discomfort. I think I would presume he's speaking for himself and for others who he wishes to be. But the truth is there may be others who do. And it's a balance, and I think we will keep to this system until, because it's worked well, and certainly I think the members that have been selected into this House as NMPs done credit to the House.
The Personal Data Protection Act will not override existing laws and requirements. Responding to a question on how healthcare-related information will be affected by the Act, Communications and Information Minister Dr. YAACOB Ibrahim said the healthcare sector is regulated by laws, which set out data confidentiality relating to healthcare information, and this will not change.
For third-party providers that are not covered under the Healthcare Act and Ministry of Health, that are collecting information, either IT providers or phone services providers, there is uncertainty because some of the information is collected in the context of healthcare, but it's not technical medical information. Would that information be covered under the Personal Data Protection Act or the existing regulations?
We have to look at on the usage. By and large, they should be covered because you are basically working on the instruction of another party to collect the data for certain purposes. So therefore, the individual who is actually giving up the information must be assured that that data is collected for that particular purpose.
Singapore law assumes that surface landowners also own the underground space to a depth reasonably necessary for the use and enjoyment of the property. Senior Minister of State for Law INDRANEE RAJAH made this point in response to a question on ownership of underground space. She said the Law Ministry will work with the industry on how the National Development Ministry's objectives for use of underground space can be realised. It will also consider other countries' experiences on what would be a sensible approach.
Some countries, for example, allow owners of the surface land to have a certain depth of underground space for their use, while enabling deeper subterranean space to be used for underground projects. We will consult stakeholders and set up a sound framework for agencies to realize the vision of more space to live, work and play.
The National Day Parade Organising Committee will make a decision on the venue for next year's parade by the end of this year. This was confirmed by Acting Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, Lawrence Wong. He noted that construction of the new sports hub is progressing as scheduled and should begin operations in April next year as planned. This would technically make it ready for next year's NDP, but he noted there are detailed logistical and operational requirements, including sufficient lead time for rehearsals that need to be catered for. Mr. Wong also responded to a query on the future of the floating platform at Marina Bay.
I have found the floating platform to be a very, very nice facility. I hope this will become a permanent feature and we could use it and enhance it and not take it away.
Indeed, Sports Council is looking at the floating platform long term. I think it's a wonderful stage which we are very mindful can be used for things beyond the National Day Parade. And when the new National Stadium is ready, and we have the National Day Parade potentially moving to the new National Stadium, we can consider long-term potential users for the floating platform. So that's being studied.
Social and Family Development Minister Chan Chun Sing said his ministry is looking to enlarge its fostering scheme for children in need of a home. Today, there are 241 foster parents caring for 314 children who are usually abandoned, neglected or ill-treated by their parents. Mr. Chan was responding to MP Dr. Lily Neo, who had filed an adjournment motion for more help for disadvantaged children. They include reserving some places in good preschools and identifying vulnerable children for intervention programs as early as at birth registration.
This would preempt our losing track of these children and only meeting them at primary 1, which is the current status for far too many children. The aim is to follow up such families with specialist science social workers and to offer assistance to those who have less than favorable home environments.
Mr. Chan said the ministry can and wants to do much more in terms of upfront prevention and intervention.
We are very keenly aware that we are not dealing with statistics. We are dealing with people's lives, and we must always act in the best interest of the child, be it in the case of marital conflicts, divorce proceedings, or fight over a child custody. But we cannot do this alone. We cannot rely on policies and institutions alone. We need everybody to join hands and open our hearts and open perhaps our homes to some of these children from disadvantaged background. But most importantly, we need quality and quantity manpower. And this is where we'd like to put in much more effort to attract Singaporeans to come and join us.
Parliament has adjourned to a date to be fixed. Good night.